NASCAR is unique among other sports in that its fans are usually a bigger fan of an individual driver than the sport itself. Heck, if their favorite driver wrecks out, they might actually just stop watching the race and go do yard work. And this isn't a product of modern times or social media either. NASCAR has always had its fair share of crowd pleasers right from the very beginning. Curtis Turner could sell out races just by simply stating that he was interested in running, and his antics with his close friend and teammate Joe Weatherly made them living legends even in the sport's infancy. Curtis won the inaugural Most Popular Driver Award and won it again in 1956, but he was not the most popular driver of all time. Richard Petty won the award 9 times, Dale Jr. won it 15 times, and Chase Elliott has won it the last 3 years in a row. But his old man was so popular that he had to remove himself from the ballot just to give other drivers a shot. Through all his trials and tribulations, he remained the perennial fan favorite. So let's take a look at the life and times of George's favorite son, Bill Elliott. Awesome Bill from Dawsonville. Born with the legal name William Clyde Elliott on October the 8th, 1955, in Dawsonville, Georgia, superstardom seemed unlikely for anybody in the family. His father, Irving George Elliott Jr., started up a lumber business and was a big fan of early auto racing. Eventually, he started making so much money that he was able to open up a speed shop where Bill's older brothers, Ernie and Dan, worked on engines. Bill's father was a Ford loyalist, a trait that would get carried over, and even opened up Northern Georgia's first Ford dealership. By the time Bill was 20, he was dead set on racing in NASCAR. His dad had bought an old Ford Torino, and Bill and Ernie prepared it as best they could. Bill tried qualifying at the nearby Atlanta Motor Speedway but missed the show. The very next year in 1976, he tried again at Rockingham and got in, the 34th of a 36-car field. The number he chose for the car? Number 9, a number he'd carried for the vast majority of his career. His car would only last 32 laps that day in his first start before an oil pump failed and he finished dead last. He got $640 for his troubles. He made a few more starts, and he showed enough potential that Bill Champion would eventually put him in his number 10 car for a few starts later in the year, where he would finally finish some races. In 1977, Bobby Allison split from Penske's NASCAR foray and was looking to get rid of a few Mercury Montegos. George Elliott scooped them up and got them race ready, and the investment paid off immediately. Bill got his first top 10 at the Southern 500 that year and started showing some real promise. By 1979, he even had a couple of top 5s to his credit. In 1980, Bill Elliott netted a sponsor, $500 from Henry Melling, owner of Melling Tools and Engineering. That relationship would eventually culminate into Henry Melling buying the team outright and operating it out of Dawsonville in December of 1981. In 1982, Bill ran the majority of races on the schedule that year and nabbed his second pole position. By 1983, he had finished second 8 times to a litany of different drivers by the likes of Bobby Allison, Richard Petty, and Neil Bonnet, just to name a few. It seemed like his day in the sun would never come, and in the last race of 1983 at Riverside, it seemed all but certain he'd have a 9th second-place finish to his name. But with 8 laps to go, Tim Richmond and Darrell Waltrip, who were running 1-2, tangled in the final turn, giving the top spot to Benny Parsons. Bill, who was running 4th before the wreck happened, then moved up to 2nd as rain began to fall. The announcers in the booth, Ken Squire and Kel Yarborough, think that there's no way to get the race restarted. There's only 7 laps left, and they declare Benny Parsons the winner. But after just 2 laps under caution, NASCAR suddenly announces they're going to throw the green and restart the race. Bill fires it off into turn 9, gets under Benny, and gives him just a little nudge and takes the lead. Just 1 lap later, rain would fall again, and NASCAR declared the race official. Dubious circumstances, sure, but hey, a W's a W. Bill Elliott finally got his first win and was well on his way to being a popular driver. But during this time, he was never the most popular driver. That honor belonged to the man who locked up the championship that day at Riverside, Bobby Allison, the winner of the Most Popular Driver Award the last 4 years running. But Bill's one win wasn't some fluke. Bill had finished 3rd in the driver standings that year, and his performance was enough to catch the eye of a major corporate sponsor willing to pour money into the team, Coors Beer. His long-awaited win seemed to open up the floodgates. He won 3 races in 1984, finished 3rd in the points again, and took the title of the most popular driver for himself. George's favorite son was now NASCAR's favorite son, and all throughout, Bill remained as humble and soft-spoken as ever. Just 8 years ago, it was unthinkable that he'd get this far, driving an old Ford Torino held together with hand-me-down equipment. But now it's a question of just how far he'll go. "1984 was a great year for Bill Elliott up to that point, but it pales in comparison to what he'd do in 1985. 16 top 5s, 11 poles, 18 top 10s, 1,920 laps led, and a staggering 11 wins in just a 28-race season. One of those wins included his very first Daytona 500 victory, which was the first race of the Winston Million, a new initiative by NASCAR and their title sponsor, Winston Cigarettes. If you could win 3 of the 4 crown jewel events of the year, you'd be awarded $1 million. Those 4 races were the Daytona 500, the Winston 500 at Talladega, the Coca-Cola 600 at Charlotte, and the Southern 500 at Darlington. The richest race, the fastest race, the longest race, and the oldest race, respectively. Bill's brother Ernie Elliott was an engineering wizard and worked with Melling to create power plants that broke all the laws of God and man. At the big tracks, Bill Elliott was completely unstoppable. So the first 2 events at Daytona and Talladega were all but assured. But car trouble at the 600 would mean an 18th place finish, and a long wait until September where he'd have his last shot down in Darlington. After starting from the pole position, dodging a wreck from Cale Yarborough, and leading 100 laps on the day, Awesome Bill from Dawsonville earned a new moniker, $1 Million Bill. He became the first NASCAR driver ever to receive a $1 million payday, about $2.5 million in today's money. But that wasn't even the most insane thing he did that year, not by a long shot. What he did to win the Winston 500 at Talladega still stands as one of the most extraordinary feats ever pulled off by any driver. He started from the pole, but early on cut an oil line, and his team worked frantically to fix it, all while the race remained under green. Amazingly, they fixed the problem and sent Bill on his way, now 2.5 laps down. But Bill Elliott unleashed the full power of his red engine number 9 and made up that deficit under green. He never got a caution to bunch the field back up. He just straight up outran everyone. Keep in mind this is at NASCAR's longest track, the 2.66-mile Talladega Superspeedway. He essentially ran 6.5 more miles than everyone and still walked away with a W. That's just absolutely insane. With 11 wins and $1 million paycheck, surely the Elliots and Melling Racing won the Winston Cup that year, right? Wrong. Darrell Waltrip instead nabbed his 3rd and final Cup with just 3 wins on the season, and a far more consistent series of finishes. Elliott had faltered late in the year, and that let Darrell pull away. In 1987, Bill won the Daytona 500 again and set the fastest lap in NASCAR history at Talladega at just a smidge over 212 miles an hour. And when 1988 wrapped up, he finally got that championship trophy after finishing in the top 4 in points the last 5 seasons in a row. This time he took a page from Darrell Waltrip's playbook and won the Cup with consistency, ending the year with a mind-boggling average finish of 6.6. But as the 80s rolled over into the 90s, something was amiss at Melling Racing. Bill won only a single race apiece in 1990 and 1991, and it became clear that the team just wasn't up to snuff anymore. In 1992, Bill made one of the most fateful decisions of his life. He left Melling Racing to join Junior Johnson's struggling number 11 team. They had not won a championship since 1985 when they bested Bill Elliott, but they were still winning a few races here and there with the likes of Terry Labonte and Jeff Bodine at the helm. But Junior hopes the most popular driver in the sport will reignite the team and puts up a huge 7-figure contract to win Bill over. That money came from the number 11 car's sponsor, Budweiser, and the thought of nabbing Coors' Golden Boy was just too tempting for them to pass up. Bill signs on the dotted line and immediately lives up to expectations, winning 4 races in a row early on in the season. His only meaningful competition for the title this year is Davey Allison, who's battling through a litany of ever-mounting injuries and inconsistent finishes. By the end of the summer stretch, Bill is comfortably ahead in the points. But then September and October roll around. The 11 team just can't catch a break as they blow an engine at Martinsville, they break a rear track bar mount completely off the car at Charlotte, and they battle overheating issues all day at Phoenix. By this time, Junior Johnson is livid, and the added pressure he put his team under likely only made things worse. However, at the final race in Atlanta, Bill is still within striking distance of taking the point lead back and winning his 2nd Cup. Davey leads the points going into that race but wrecks out after the halfway point, leaving Bill in a position to take the Cup for himself. However, a guy we haven't talked about yet is in the way. Alan Kowicki was the man originally slotted for the number 11 ride, but turned it down, wanting to do things his way. He now races as an owner-driver, and for him, this championship is personal. Not only did he turn down the very ride he is now battling against, Junior Johnson had retaliated by poaching a sponsor Alan had been courting in Maxwell Health's Coffee, which now funds Junior Johnson's 2nd car. Late in the race, the final pit stops are underway. Alan stays out as long as possible to nab as many laps led as he can. Back then, you got an extra 5 points for the most laps led in a race. Alan and Bill had been running 1-2 for nearly a third of the race. When Bill finally pits, his crew chief, Tim Brewer, makes a colossal mistake and loses track of Terry Labonte in the 94 car, who leads a single lap that Bill could have had for himself, thus clinching the most laps led award for Alan, who led exactly 1 more lap than Bill that day. Bill Elliott ends up winning the race with Allen in second. As the points are tallied up, Allen is just 10 points ahead of Bill, giving the Wisconsin underdog the title. Had Bill led that one lap over Terry Labonte, he would have gotten the most laps led bonus, making the points a tie, and the tiebreaker at the time was whoever had the most wins on the season. Bill had 5, Allen had just 2. Junior Johnson is so angry with Brewer over his mistake that he fires him on the spot after the race. Mike Beam is named the crew chief going into 1993, and then Bill Elliott started losing. At first it seemed like the usual runner-up slump. He went winless in 1993, only netting a single victory at Watkins Glen in the Busch Series. In 1994, he claims what will end up being his last win of the 90s at the Southern 500. Allegedly, a rift had grown between Bill and the team. Bill preferred to spend time with his family in Dawsonville and rarely visited the shop in North Carolina. Contrast that with the other drivers Junior had on his roster, who would buy houses in North Carolina to stay as close to the shop as possible and would make daily visits to make sure everything was right. While the team did all the work, they hardly ever saw Bill in the shop looking things over, and their effort level and dedication quickly faltered. Bill then makes another fateful decision. He announces he will go on to be an owner-driver starting in 1995, taking along Junior Johnson's second sponsor, McDonald's, as his primary sponsor. Perhaps he thought he could avenge his 1992 title loss by playing by Allen's rules, or he saw the success of other owner-drivers like Ricky Rudd and Darrell Waltrip and thought he could do better. Whatever the case might have been, he sets off into 1995 with high hopes. He picks the number 94 in honor of Casey Elliott, his nephew who was battling cancer. But try as he may, he just could not win with that team. This is the era my generation remembers Bill Elliott the most for, that flashy red 94 with the gold and white highlights. I wasn't alive to see Bill Elliott's dominance of the 80s. I never saw him set the fastest lap in NASCAR history or come back from 2 laps down to win. I never saw his dominance on the big tracks. I only ever knew him from my years as a kid watching this soft-spoken, humble Georgian come up short every single week. He had speed. Ernie Elliott had come on board with the engine program and they had a fantastic super speedway package, but Bill's number never came up. He came close so many times but could not seal the deal. He did once have a victory in this stretch, a non-points paying win at the Daytona qualifying races in 2000. He was elated to say the least, but by the end of the year, it's become apparent he can't keep this up much longer. But, as luck would have it, one last twist of fate finds Bill at the most auspicious moment. In 2001, Dodge is coming back to NASCAR after a 2-decade hiatus, and Jeff Gordon's former crew chief, Ray Evernham, is going to operate what will essentially be the Dodge factory team, sporting the red Intrepid, number 9 and 19. Bill Elliott will climb into his red engine number 9 one last time and act as a mentor for the up-and-coming Casey Atwood. It's a new team, a new manufacturer, and an aging driver. At this point, Bill is 45 years old and nearing the end of his career. Winless for 7 years, no one expects much from him. And this will likely be the end for him, where he will slip away quietly into the history books. Just another driver whose time had come and gone. But none of that happened. Instead, he went out and did this.
227 races ago, Bill Elliott took the checkered flag in the Southern 500 at Darlington. He's done it today at Homestead. Elliott is your winner. Bill Elliott bringing it home for Ray Evernham and Dodge as Elliott wins the Pennsylvania 500 at Pocono. And now Bill Elliott joins the list of winners of the Brickyard 400 at Indy. It'll be Bill Elliott with his first win of 2003 at Rockingham today.
With his success in the early 2000s, he and Sterling Marlin put Dodge back on the map, and Bill put a cap on an incredible career. In 2004, he'd give up his seat to the rising star Casey Kane, and move into the number 91 as a part-time R&D ride. Later, his championship provisional made him a hot commodity for struggling teams, and he'd make his final start in the Cup Series in 2012 and call it a day. Just kidding, he came back in 2018 for a one-off race at Road America in the Xfinity Series just for shots and goggles, and then that really was the end of it. Actually, no, he's set to drive in the new SRX Series full-time in 2021, and who knows how many chapters are left in his racing career. Maybe he'll pull a Red Farmer and just race forever. Only time will tell. Anyway, I'm Slapshoes, thanks for watching, and until next time, y'all take it easy.